Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the White Knuckle Podcast, episode number 23. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast, episode number 23. Today, we're going to relive the last 10 years in White Knuckle Productions history, relive some of the past, some of the fun, some of the lows, and also talk about where we're going to go from here. So with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy Todd and I's conversation about White Knuckle Productions. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the White Knuckle Podcast. Today, it's just Todd and myself, and we're going to be discussing all things that are White Knuckle Productions and all the different aspects, whether it relates to hunting, business, anything that could be involved with White Knuckle Productions. How's it going today, Todd?
Not too bad, Jason. I'm slowly recovering from the last 3 days of hard turkey hunting with my good boy Eddie Edmondson, and we had our butts absolutely handed to us. So I'm ready to talk about whitetails because I get so frustrated during turkey season because I am, as you know, the world's worst turkey hunter.
You heard it here first, or second, or third, or
just humiliated. When you don't even hear a gobble in 3 days, it's pretty frustrating when you know they're around. And I just don't have that experience or background. And to be honest with you, my passion kind of for turkeys is all fun related, and I don't get too serious because the whitetails, what can I say, man? I'm a whitetail nut, so it is what it is. But we were able to have a good time in the blind, and at least we saw a couple birds, nothing close, and barely any.
Yeah, I had a horrible turkey season as well. Anything that I thought I knew from hunting there the past 13 years, I could have thrown out the window. And I think a lot of it has to do with the last 13 years. It's been corn around the timber, and for the first time in 13 years, it was beans last year, which had never been planted there as far as I can remember. So I can only figure that that's what the difference was. So yeah, I haven't figured anything out. So we're going to talk about White Knuckle today, and we're going to talk about the 10 years. It's our 10-year anniversary, and I know we spent a little bit of time in the past talking about how it is that you got started. And let's just, recap that real quick, if you would. Tell us how you had the vision to start White Knuckle, why you started White Knuckle, and then we'll talk about how White Knuckle sort of at times helps your hunting and then at times hinders our hunting, I guess.
Oh, sure. Just in the process of talking about the show and going back and thinking about different stuff, it's amazing. It's already been 10 years. And to this day, I still honestly don't even really know how I got into filming because it really wasn't something I was passionate about until later on in my hunting career. I guess, when I started out bow hunting, I was 12 years old and just immediately became just enamored by it. And it just took hold of me. There's something about the flight of that arrow and the whitetail deer that, man, it just, as you guys are listening, any whitetail nuts out there, you know what I'm talking about. But it really, it wasn't a business motivation or anything like that. I was actually my background and everything I was doing was basically around drafting, design, product design, and then later on engineering and manufacturing. So hunting was just my passion. But as I got older and started, like from 16 is where I made a huge pivotal move when I could drive. That's when I got crazy because I could start moving around and hunt where I wanted to without having to walk. And so that was a pivotal moment. And then in 2003, my good friend Walter Eastling had met a person up on the Pure Marquette River in Michigan. I'll never forget. And they helped him get on a fishing hole, catch some trout. Anyway, long story short, these guys ended up owning some property in Illinois. And this was right around the time where like Pike County, Adams County, it's what all you heard about. And so I kept riding Walter. I'm like, dude, we got to get a hold of these people. Let's take advantage of this. And I had at the same time just started doing some work with Lone Wolf tree stands. I was honestly just a huge fan, an avid user of Lone Wolf, and through one of Walter's friends, and actually it's Kyle's uncle, Mike Reindeers, they randomly had ordered some sticks, and I ended up using them. And once I started using Lone Wolf stuff, I was like, holy cow, it was just like the bulb went off, like, oh my Lord, this is so much easier, and I can actually hunt where I want to. So I had contacted Andre, the original owner, by email one day with some ideas. He called me, and I think the first time we talked for almost 3 hours on the phone, and I just felt like a kindred spirit in him, like, this guy's crazy. And ended up going down hunting with him, spending some time, and eventually started doing design work for him. But all the while, wasn't planning on doing anything related to filming. But it was kind of my foot in the door. I'd go down to the ATA show, and I think this year was like I don't even know, man, 16th or 17th year or something like that. But I was just happy to be hanging around with guys who hunted big whitetails, and just to be a bow hunter and to be able to hang around with people who had killed all these big deer was just like a dream come true to me. And I had no money motivation other than just literally just trying to enamor myself and surround myself and my world with bow hunting. Because at the time, the only outlet we really had was like the bow site and Hunting Net and a couple of the websites. But you didn't really know, at least I didn't know any people who were as crazy about bow hunting as myself. And I just wanted to talk about it, think about it all day long, every day of my life. So
you bring up a good point. I mean, the world was a lot smaller then. There was, this maybe the same amount of people, but you didn't have access to so much information as you do now.
No, there was only really a couple sites, and even there was no Facebook or anything like that. But at the trade shows, I happened to meet Justin Czar and Todd Graff back in the days of Hunting Net, and through my experience and talking with them, and I had been killing some nice deer along the way, Justin and Todd gave me an opportunity, and they asked me if I'd like to start writing a blog on Hunting Net. And I thought, wow, this would be cool, because it was the first year I moved to Iowa. It was 2005. And so I moved to Iowa. That was another pivotal moment, and yada, yada. There's a whole lot of different stuff in there, but we're trying to keep to the white knuckle side. But in the process of writing this blog for them, I bought my first digital camera, literally, and I was out snapping pictures of my first year in Iowa of scouting, hanging tree stands, and hunting. And I just enjoyed and became very passionate about sharing my story. And the other side of it was people wanted to hear an authentic, non-commercial view of hunting, I guess. And my blog became very popular. I think at one point it was the most popular blog, and they had some big names on there writing, but I was just very into it. So I was writing new stuff, new content, and tons of pictures and tons of media. And I really fell in love with it, to the point where Todd and Justin were nice enough, and I mean honest enough, where they actually offered me money per month to continue to write the blog because it was taken off. So all these things kind of happened, and I ended up killing the biggest buck of my life, a dream come true, a buck called the Iowa Tree Shredder in 2005. And at the end of the season, I just kind of came to this conclusion one day. I'm like, man, if I was filming all this stuff, it would be incredible, because I was out hunting every day, busting my butt. I mean, dude, nonstop. Doing stuff I'd never even heard of guys, hunting that hard and moving stands every single day. I was just wearing myself down. I think the first year I hunted, I lost close to 30 pounds just during hunting season. And I was absolutely tenacious. But I enjoyed sharing that story. And one day just kind of thought, man, maybe I should start a production company. And years before, I was driving to Illinois, and I heard White Knuckle on the radio. It was on a radio program, and White Knuckle Productions popped into my head, and I was like, man, that'd be a great name for a TV show. And I remember thinking at the moment, I'm like, well, I'll never use it because I'm not going to get into TV or video. Like, I had no interest whatsoever. But long story short, that summer I spent some time in Michigan and kind of got my buddies together, Walter Eastling and some of the original team members. And Walter at the time was my best buddy, so we talked all the time. And he said, hey, have you heard of, do you know Kyle Reindeers? And I said, no. And he said, well, Kyle went to film school, and he, like major motion picture film school, and he's like really into videoing. Maybe you should talk with him. So ended up hooking up with Kyle. He was young and had some flexibility in his schedule. And bada boom, bada bing, he came down and filmed me one weekend in the summer, and I'll never forget it because I had this vision for what I wanted our production to look like. And I had envisioned like a film-like look in 16:9 format or widescreen. And back then, everything was filmed in 4:3, which is square. And I mean, this is before plasma TVs or widescreens or anything. So, but I'd had that vision in my brain of making more of a cinematographic, which I don't even know if the right term, look and feel to a production company in a hunting story. And we went with it. We went down, we filmed one weekend, went back, reviewed it on our television. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's what I was envisioning. I mean, it just looked right. I was wearing Predator camo in the field, the way the colors looked, everything just like popped. And I was like, holy cow, this is what I envisioned. So we went out hunting that year, and I was humbled very, 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 very quickly at how difficult it was to hunt. And not only that, Kyle wasn't a hunter. He had never even seen a hunting DVD when we produced our first one. And that was kind of part of the reason I loved about him, is because I wanted something completely fresh that looked like nothing else, that just sounded like nothing else, just a fresh approach. Because to be quite frank, any of the hunting videos that were out, any of the TV shows that were out, I didn't even watch, because they just were so overproduced. They were so too squeaky clean. Nothing but an infomercial, outfitted hunts, and big money guys. And I couldn't relate to that. And I knew there was a huge market of guys out there that felt the same way that I did. That watching some of these big names go on outfitted hunts at these ranches and everything else, it was like, that's not hunting to me. That's not bow hunting. You take the work out of it, and you take all that planning and scheduling and the blue collar aspect out, and that's not hunting for us. So I decided to do it. And thankfully I had a bunch of buddies along the way. The Nevars were implemental. Andy and Ed Nevar were implemental in that first year. And so many of the other guys, Walter Eastling and Steve Reindeers. But we just kind of did it. And, I think if I wasn't so young and dumb, I probably wouldn't ever even think about doing it now, because there's just no money in it. There's no real financial gain to be had, at least directly, in selling DVDs and or doing a TV show or web show. It's usually about product in some way, shape, or form. But I was green enough where we just did it and haven't looked back yet. And that was 10 years ago. And now thinking of all the different seasons, man, like, can you believe it's been that far, man? I just can't even fathom.
I couldn't agree more. I wasn't with you from the start. I was with you from close to the start, I believe the second year. But, man, just like everything else, so much has changed, and I got it for different reasons than what you did. I really didn't have a vision. I just knew that I wanted to do something more than just go out and hunt, because I don't know that I got bored with just going out and hunting, but I just wanted to, add that extra little bit of challenge to it that filming your hunt provides you. And back then, filming it yourself just wasn't an option, because cameras were, like a boat anchor, and it was just too cumbersome to do. So you had to have a camera person, and of course that's changed now, but and that's a whole other topic. But I just wanted that extra added element of a challenge to it. And another motivation for me was I knew that my best friend Dave had quit hunting for whatever reason, and he was interested after we talked to you at the Wisconsin Deer and Turkey Expo, and I'm just glad that we had a chance to come down to Iowa to the film school and learn a little bit about how to do what it was you wanted us to do, because quite frankly, you were a jerk when you sent me an email after I sent you my first, I don't know what they were called, demo reels, and you basically told me that I sucked. My feelings aren't hurt about that yet. That just popped back into my brain.
That's so well, I generally tell it like it is.
I'm like, so how was it? What did you think of it? You're like, it was really shaky. There really wasn't anything positive to say about it. Why don't you come to the film school? Maybe you can learn something there. Okay. Thank you. I guess my comment to David was he didn't say no.
Well, I'll be honest. At the time, man, we'd only produced one DVD, and it was so different. I'll I'll never forget the first trade show we went to in Michigan. I mean, you show your friends and your family, and oh man, that's awesome. But until you sell one to a customer and they give you an honest review with no bias, you really don't know what you have. But we went to the Michigan show the first year, and we had a customer bought one on Friday night. I'll never forget it. They went back to their hotel room, watched it, or actually went home because they lived locally. And the guy made a trip back to the show on Saturday, paid the admission just to come in to tell us. And I will never forget the guy, the look on his face and everything. He came in and he like grabbed me and he's like, I watched that video last night and I'm here to tell you that's the best hunt video I've ever seen. He's like, I just loved it. And he went into all these details about the different aspects of the hunt. And I was, I kind of like at that moment was like, all right, thankful, thank God somebody likes it. But I knew we were on to something because it was so different. And sometimes being different is enough, but we had some good whitetail hunts and some great footage. But just, it was different, man. It was so authentic. And we look back at it now and the quality is terrible and everything else. But compared to what was on the market at the time, it was so different and unique. We had something. And so I knew it. And then as we progressed and, the years go by and everything, you learn so much along the way that it just transforms the way you hunt and everything else. But I think what really is our sticking point was I got into it for the right reasons. We got the right guys involved that were in it for the right reasons. And usually we could tell with the different team members that we worked with, that if they asked for what kind of free products they were going to get within the first couple weeks of starting the discussions, they were not going to be the type of people that we would want to work with. If they were motivated by anything other than their passion for whitetails, generally they were going to get bored and move on or end up, believing that they were better than, or that they were worth something more than they were, and they'd end up bouncing around to different teams and this, that, and the other. Because at the end of the day, the fact remains, if you expect to make money by filming your hunts, you are going to have to be exceptional and you're going to have financing to do it. And even the guys who are making money doing it are usually funded from a different business that they own. They still work full-time jobs. They're doing it because of the passion, most generally. And that's where your authenticity comes through on screen. And you can't make that up. You can read through the lines. There's a lot of people out there producing shows that shouldn't be. And as soon as you watch their content, you'll understand what I'm talking about, where it's just like, dude, it's just not good. It's not enjoyable to watch because you can tell they're trying to be somebody or something they're not. So authenticity is so important. And you start to learn that with different people over the years. And we've been through dozens and dozens and dozens of team members back and forth. And some of them are still good friends. Some of them come back. Some of them left. And that's just a part of the business, and that's been the hardest thing, I think, for me personally, is dealing with the business side of this. And it's not being just a hobby. And I know a lot of our team members, we've had disgruntled team members who have left, different people who don't like me, think I'm egotistical, do this, that, or the other. And I'm here to tell you, if you're running a business in the hunting industry and you have to pay your bills and you have to collect from your sponsors, it changes your outlook on hunting and it changes your outlook on team members and things like that. It's a lot less fun when you have to pay for the ride, so to speak. And that's been the hardest part because not everybody sees that aspect. They don't know the struggles financially. And when sponsors don't pay you on time, when sponsors don't pay you at all, there's been so much stress, financial stress involved with it over the years that it hardens you, it calluses you, and it makes you emotionally separate yourself from the business and some of your team members even to a certain degree, because it just it is what it is. It's the business and it's the path I've chosen. So I'm not going to apologize for anything. We're still in business 10 years later, and that's something to be said in this industry. There's very few companies that are, and it is what it is. You want to be in a business, you're going to have to separate your love of the sport and your hobby, and you have to wear the accounting hat and the financial hat often. And sometimes that is what ruins it. And in most cases, just through the trade shows and stuff we've been to over all these years, most of the guys who start in this are done within 2 to 3 years because The first year they lose a bunch of money, but they expect the second year to pay them back. The second year, when they still lose money, they say, all right, I'm going to give it one more year. And if we can't break even, then we're going to discontinue. And then by the third year, they still aren't breaking even because there's just, this is a long-term game plan. And unless you have some major source of income coming in on the side, you were either financially well off to begin with, or you own a product company, which was my side. Everything I based this company and the vision on was knowing that I was going to start Wicked Tree Gear at some point and have the market to sell a product to. So I had invested all that money in White Knuckle Productions and paid to do it for all those years, knowing Wicked was going to eventually come. And there's nothing has changed from that standpoint. It's always going to be about a product of some sort because that's my background. But that's the part not too many people understand, is that a lot of times you're literally paying to do these shows so that you can accomplish your long-term vision. And that's the way I've always thought. I'm a 10-year thinker. I'm not a 10-minute thinker.
I couldn't agree more. Now that I've been involved in the business side, there's times that it's hard to set it down and just look at it for what it is and make a business decision, because at the end of the day, it is a business. And that's the hard part that a lot of guys and gals don't understand. We've got people that contact me every day about being, team members, and we certainly want to grow our team. Make no mistake about it. And that's why we're having a film school coming up. But it was a tough decision, especially for Todd. I think for you, when I said I think we need to charge for people to come to our film school, because we would get so many folks that would show up for the party, and we wanted people, if you want to be involved with White Knuckle Productions, the door's open, but you got to have some skin in the game. And that was a business decision. And it was probably harder on you to agree with me, not because you didn't want to agree with me, because that's just not the way you've operated in the past, but it was something that needed to happen. So that's just an example of some of the hard choices that you need to make. At the end of the day, there's business and there's fun. And unfortunately in this business, those two paths cross often, and you've got to learn to balance those two. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And the other element of it is, it's not as important anymore, but, back in the day, it was all about the number of kills. When we would sell DVDs at a trade show, the number one question, how many kills or how many hunts are on it? And we'd say hundreds. And they'd be like, well, what do you mean? Well, we're not that kind of video. But at the time, that's how you were judged. That's how they would decide whether they wanted to buy your video or not. So I had involved a lot of my friends for many, many, many years, and I never put any kill restrictions on anything because I wanted the natural seasons to come out. But the pressure of having content is always there, and I would be the one carrying the burden for that throughout my entire hunting season. And so a lot of sleepless nights, exhaustion, stressed out, and you have all these guys on your team who are your buddies, and over a period of time, don't really produce anything. And in some cases, we had team members who were on board for 8 years who never shot an animal on video, or a buck at least. And I still allowed them to continue because I wasn't going to be the guy who's going to put restrictions on making guys kill things, because I wanted people to hunt their season, not for us, hunt for themselves. And that's hard. It's really hard. And some people get that. Some people don't. Some people leave. Some people stay. At the end of the day, all you can do is keep doing what you've been doing all these years. And the one thing that we have survived is because I essentially have been able to successfully kill enough deer over the years to keep the train moving forward. But we've had years where I didn't kill anything for 2 years straight, but yet was passing, all these big game animals. But in the back of my mind, I always knew it was worth it, because as soon as you start selling out, when I mean selling out, there's a lot of guys and podcasts and TV shows and web shows out there who love to talk about QDM and management and their hit list bucks. And then, right around the last part of the season, they all of a sudden shoot a 3-year-old. Well, to me, that's a sellout. When you hang your hat on, I'm going to be a QDM manager, and I'm going to do my part, and you take the stance of, hey, I'm a professional hunter, and then at the last minute you decide to just shoot something. To me, that's a sellout. I never sold out. I never shot an animal over the years ever just to fill a tag to have another kill in our DVDs. And I think that's been a part of our success, is that authenticity. That's what the serious guys like. That's what makes people trust you. And eventually, which we're going to get into next, is ties into sponsorship. Sponsors are what have paid the bills for us for all these years. And that's the question we get asked all the time, is how do you get sponsors? How do you do this? How do you do that with sponsors related to sponsorship? And the reason why we have the sponsors we have today, and many of them we've had for years and years and years, are because the authenticity that we produce and the success that we have shown sells their products. It's that simple. If you want to be in this business and you have a company like Ozonics or Lone Wolf or any of our sponsors, Vortex Optics, and they don't know you're selling their product, they don't care how many Facebook likes you have. They don't care how many Instagram followers you have. They don't care if you killed a 500-inch whitetail. They don't care if you killed 27 deer last year. They care about selling product. And if you're not selling their product for them, you're only a temporary sponsor. You're not going to have next year's contract. So I think so many companies and individuals put the carriage before the horse these days, and they decide that they want to get in the hunting industry and produce a show. And in some cases, some of these guys have only been hunting a few years, and it just cracks me up, because it's like, when did the hunting industry turn into a modeling agency? But that doesn't sell product, not high-end innovative product. So I'm going to start back from square one in the sponsorship discussion and say, when I started White Knuckle, my focus was on producing the best quality product, period. And I think, honestly, it came from my design, just being a product guy. It was all about the product and design and simplicity. But my number one focus for the first 2 or 3 years was simply producing the best quality product, which for us was a DVD at the time. And everything else would fall into place. But it's got to start with the product. And I think that's where we've been smart all these years, and that's where I've been fortunate, was that I decided right from the beginning I didn't want to be a company that had 30 sponsors like all these TV shows. I simply couldn't pick 30 products that I could really put my name on and say, this is something that helps me kill bigger deer and it's the best one out there. So I simplified everything, and I went with sponsorships with companies that produce the best products I had been using for years and that I was a customer for years and promoting for years before I ever asked them for anything. And back then, there was no such thing as a pro form. Heck, we bought most of our products at trade shows. But the huge difference now is everybody wants to use companies to justify their brand. So let's say you got mom and pop TV show. They want to be able to throw a Wicked Tree gear on there. They want to put all these logos on their show to validate their existence and validate their show. Well, that's putting the carriage before the horse. And that's a twofold issue. Number one, once you accept a product sponsorship from a company, they have you. You're out there promoting their brand. You've associated yourself with that brand. Trying to get those companies to write you a check the following year is not impossible, but it's nearly impossible. Once you've set the stage for product, it's very hard to get out of that category. And that's where so many guys, in my opinion, that's the 10-minute plan versus the 10-year plan. You got to think about 10 years down the road. Are you going to be working with these companies? Are those companies even going to still be in existence? Because every company that you work with that falls through, it's a notch against you from a marketing standpoint. They're going to look at a brand and say, well, how many different scent elimination sprays has this guy promoted in the last 5 years? Do you think a company like Ozonics wants to work with a guy who's promoted every other scent elimination product on the market, and at that time each year was saying, this is the ultimate product, this is the product that works? Well, at some point, that type of mentality will make you unauthentic, and it will not make your ability to sell a product over a period of time. And you see some of the big names, I'm not going to name them, but there are a lot of big names who have promoted every scent elimination clothing and company out there, and they flip brands nearly yearly because they have to pay their TV show bills. To me, that's a sellout. The only scent elimination product I've ever marketed is Ozonics, and there's a reason for it, because it's the only one that I've ever found that actually works. And trust me, I have used it all. But the other difference is I've got the success with mature animals and the footage to prove it. And that's another aspect of the quality of product. We produced the footage for these guys that sold product for them. And that's why they're still our sponsors.
We mentioned before the business side of things. And at the end of the day, from a sponsor's point of view, now that I've gone through this process of working out these contracts with different sponsors, at the end of the day, the ugly truth is it's still for them about selling product. The numbers have to add up. So what Todd, what you've done is found a way that I like to sell, not necessarily sell product, but to support a product that you believe in just purely because of your belief in that product. I have never known you ever. Sometimes you're a pain in my ass about it, but I've never ever known you to support a product that you didn't believe in. I've mentioned other products. You're like, nope, can't wear that. Nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do this. And I'm like, oh God, he's a pain in the ass. But at the end of the day, it does make my job easier because White Knuckle can still continue to do what White Knuckle does without having to do what a lot of the other shows do. Some do it better than others. Not all the shows that are out there are shoving it down your throat like some of the other ones. And that's what's going to lead into one of the questions that we had from one of the folks on Facebook. And that was, how is it that you essentially are able to keep sponsors without shoving things down people's throat? The person said it's getting out of control for most of the industry, worse than NASCAR. And the next person that commented said, great question. Absolutely out of control. I can't even watch most of the shows anymore. How is it that you feel in an increasingly competitive marketplace that you'll be able to still see White Knuckle through and maintain the way of doing business that you have in the past with just simply supporting the products that you do the way that you do and still survive when there's so much competition out there?
Well, I think it comes down to, honestly, authenticity. And the reason I got involved with this to begin with is still the same reason that I'm involved with it today. It never was about money, and it certainly was never about putting my face on TV or putting selfies on Facebook. It was all about the animals and sharing that experience. And years ago, doing lone wolf trade shows, like there was something killer about selling somebody on a product and having them come back next year and tell you, dude, I went out, used this hand climber or this hang on, and I went out and killed the biggest buck of my life because you sold this to me. And thank you. And they buy another one. And there was something about that just, I can't get enough. And I'm an engineer and designer, so I'm doing the product stuff. And so that's always been my passion, is to produce a quality product that makes guys' dreams come true in the field. If you can help somebody go out and live this dream that we all do, which is chasing these big deer, and you literally help them do it, there is a relationship that is formed between you and that consumer at that time. And all I've tried to do is duplicate that with everything we do. And I'm not in it for the money. I'm so stubborn, and I am driven to do things that no one else has done. And I do not follow the path of least resistance. I'm not an emulator. I've always wanted to do my own thing and just do things differently. Not just to be different, but I have a better way of doing things. So, and I'm not afraid to say it. Some people consider that arrogant or egotistical, but that's just the way I'm wired. I think my secret for success has been able to combine my passion for whitetails with my skill, and it's a skill that you can be paid for, which is in designing and engineering products. Without that, I couldn't do White Knuckle. So my goals, because they've been twofold, they've been product driven on something different that has enabled me to keep White Knuckle authentic and not have to, excuse my French, whore ourselves out and promote everything under the sun to pay our bills and to try to make money. But I think everybody's seeing it on Facebook. There's a lot of this younger generation who are promoting anything they can get their hands on to try to market themselves in this industry. And success is a huge part of our success in the past, which is killing mature deer and letting a lot of nice deer walk that anybody else in the industry would shoot. And that's something I actually enjoy doing. And that's been nothing but part of our huge success has just been by sticking to our guns and to our beliefs that, got us to this point. And I just think there's, a lot of people who are in it for the wrong reasons. A lot of people, you see all the Facebook pictures. There's a lot of selfie pictures out there, man. And, if a company's paying me to promote their product, I put a picture of their product out there of it in the field getting used. I don't put a picture of myself in it with it, trying to make myself ride the coattails of that particular sponsor. They're paying me to promote their product. They're not paying me to promote myself. And I think you have to draw a line unless you think that someday YouTube is going to be paying you $1 million a year because you're, the next big thing. Good luck with it. I wish you the best. If that's your passion and dream, go for it. But I think in the world of whitetails, especially in the products we're selling, the higher end, more expensive products, the demographic that spends that money, meaning the age groups, are not the 15 to 20-year-olds. Those people have no money. They're in college. They're generally poor. They're not going out and blowing $500 on ozonics and $1,000 a year on tree stands and $800 on camo outfits. The demographic that are spending that kind of money are generally the 25 to 40-year-olds and older because they have steady incomes, they own homes, they've got careers, and they're educated. That educated demographic sees through the crap that all these younger people are putting out there. And you know what? You can have 500,000 Twitter followers. You can be absolutely gorgeous girl and have 1 million Facebook fans, but that isn't going to sell a $500 ozonics unit. What sells $500 ozonics unit is authenticity, success in the field, and footage, and the right type of marketing to back it up. So that's my number one thing right now. I think the current marketplace is absolutely flooded, and it's only going to get worse with podcasts, web shows of a lot of younger people because they know the technology more so than the older generation. But the one thing they lack is the actual experience in the field. That experience in the field is what I have found to actually be the difference in what sells products. And that's why we have the sponsors we have that continue to support us year after year after year. And I just can't say enough thanks to our followers, because you are the ones that have enabled us to do what we do. And without you, we couldn't do that. I know all of you out there think that, you're just one of a billion or whatever. But, what it comes down to it is the reason we do it is for you. We're hunters just like you. And I want to help you with being successful in the field every single day. So just to name a few of our partners off the top of my head, and just to say thank you to these companies. Ozonics has been there for many, many years. They make the best product out there. It's fantastic. Lone Wolf tree stands. Enough said, right? Spartan cameras, the best trail camera for the money out there. Kuntz Engineering makes the best food plot equipment for small ATVs. Wicked Tree Gear, company I started 5-6 years ago, make the best saws in the world. Vortex Optics, the best optics for your money, and they're based in up in Wisconsin. Fantastic company. Land Pros, a new realty company that we're good friends with Bo Jensen, Dawn Jensen, and their crew, and they are the ag professionals. They know what property is worth, and they know how to sell it. They are a fantastic realty group that sells everything from major agricultural land to smaller smaller type recreational properties, but everything in between. And then Stick and Pick. We've been using their camera stands for years. It makes every trail camera setup easier. I cannot implore you. Stick and Pick is the way to go. And finally, Mrs. Dope's. Sam Clora has been a good friend of mine for very many years. I've been using his products for a very long time. And Mrs. Dopey makes the best scents out there. If you guys use scents, I would definitely highly recommend them. And with that being said, with all the products that we promote, They're products that I use myself and that I truly believe to be the best. And I mean, there's other products out there that are fantastic, but sometimes the costs are so high I can't myself justify it because I'm a blue collar type of guy. But there are products that make a huge difference in our way of hunting, and the products that we use and promote, those are all products that I can't hunt without. I literally cannot hunt without them. They are a tool in the toolbox that are absolutely essential in what we do. So I can guarantee you this much. You buy anything from any of our product sponsors, I guarantee I'll put my name on it that you're going to have the best experience and it's worth every dollar you spend. And if not, I'll personally refund it myself. That's how much I believe in this stuff. But that's the difference. We have 8 or 9 sponsors. Some of these companies have 30. And the more sponsors you have, the less time and energy you can dedicate to each one of them. And that's been a formula for my success. You can't get yourself into a situation where you put your name on everything, because if you put your name on everything, you're not going to have a name. It's just you're going to turn into another one of these industry guys who have no validity anymore. So if I can give you any piece of advice, it's quality over quantity. Don't get into the game of trying to do, more and more and more and more. It's not about how much free gear you can get, at least in my world. I want to be the 10-year plan, not the 10-minute plan. So anyway, with that being said, I think it's about time to wrap this podcast up. I appreciate our fans out there. And I think by watching and listening to our podcast over the years what we believe in and what we stand for. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about the animals. And we're just lucky to be the people out here that are able to promote our hunts and share these unbelievable experiences we have in nature under God's heaven, and be able to, chase the dream, so to speak. But it's not pretty and it's not glamorous. So you're not going to see any shots from the field where we're wearing fancy camo and face paint and looking cool while we're walking in. That's just not us. And it's, in my opinion, it's not what guys like us really want to see. It just, I don't know. It just gets cheesy to a certain point, and I think I'd rather keep it real. And any selfie you see with me is hopefully behind a dead animal. With that being said, thank you for listening. Go get them.
I don't think I could have said that a whole lot more perfectly myself, Todd. Thanks. Just do us all a favor. If you're going to do a selfie, please, please, please wear a hat. Before we wrap this show up, as always, we'd like to take a second to thank those that make this show possible. Ozonics, undetectable, undeniable. Lone Wolf, your silent partner. Spartan Camera, you don't have to be there. Coons Engineering, Wicked Tree Gear. Vortex Optics, the Force in Optics. Land Pros, and Stick and Pick. Well, there you have it. Todd and I's conversation about the last 10 years with White Knuckle Productions. I hope you enjoyed everything that you heard, and I hope you look forward to everything that is to come. I know I have enjoyed the last 10 years in working with Todd, and have learned a lot over the course of time, and hope that through our web shows and podcasts, you've also, as always, we need your feedback. If you could go on to iTunes or Stitcher and give us a review, it would greatly help. Doing that gives us the ability to know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. So we would just ask that you go on to Stitcher Radio or the iTunes app and give us a review. If you don't have either of those things and you have an iDevice, grab your iPhone and go to the iTunes store and search for White Knuckle Podcast. This will help you to download the free podcast app that's produced by Apple, and then you can subscribe to the show from within that app. On the Stitcher Radio app, just do the same thing, and you will also get a show downloaded to your device as soon as we produce one. With that, we hope you have a great week, and stay tuned for our next show next Monday. It will be one you don't want to miss. Thanks, and have a great rest of your week.